Let's now dive into a different scenario, that we have a code snippet in Markdown and we want to present this in a nice way. For this, I prepared a second post for you. Attached, you find a zip file, mastering JavaScript, which contains an image, which you should add in a mastering JavaScript folder inside of images, posts, and then the mastering JavaScript Markdown file, which you should add in the posts folder. That is a file which has the same kind of metadata as the other file, just the order is different, and then also some content. And here we have a code snippet. This is how we can add a code snippet in Markdown. Now, if I save that, if I go to all posts, we see that post here. So our logic for loading all posts works. And if we click on that post, we also load it here. But the code snippet is presented, but we could present it in a nicer way. It's okay, but we can do better. And for this, I want to override how the code snippet will be rendered. Now we can do that overriding just as we did it for the image. In post-content.js, in the custom render as object, we can not just override how a paragraph is rendered, but in there, we can also add another method called code, because that's another officially supported identifier for such code blocks. Here we then get our code object from React Markdown. And now I want to return my own JSX element. And there is a great component which we can use for rendering code snippets. It's another third-party package which I'll install, and it is the React-syntax-highlighter package, written like this. So make sure you install that package. And that is a package which makes highlighting code in a pleasant way very, very simple. So let's restart the dev server, and let's start by importing that library. For this, we need to import from React Syntax Highlighter, and from there we can import various syntax highlighters which are built in. As always, if you Google for React Syntax Highlighter, you'll find the official docs, the official GitHub repository to be precise, and there you then find detailed instructions and guidance. Now we will use the Prism syntax highlighter, which is built in. And we'll use it basically as it's shown here, with one minor adjustment. We import Prism from React Syntax Highlighter, and I'll rename it to Syntax Highlighter, though that's of course optional. This will give us a container which is able to digest code and then format it in a nice way. Now for styling, we have to add an extra import, which will then style this code in a beautiful way. We import from React Syntax Highlighter again, but now from a subfolder, from dist/cjs, and that's important, CJS, not ESM, but CJS, since this code needs to be executable on the server side, /styles/prism, and from there, I'll import the Atom Dark theme. Now there are other themes. You can just use auto-completion to browse through them and try out different themes, but I like the Atom Dark theme. How are we going to use it though? We're going to use it with our custom renderer. Here we want to return a new syntax highlighter component. So we use that syntax highlighter component. And now that component needs to know which language is used for the given code snippet. In Markdown, that is added as an annotation after these three backticks. JS for JavaScript, for example. That's needed for this highlighting component to highlight the right keywords. So we need to pass in the language. And then children, so the actual code. Now we get both from the code our React Markdown component identified here. So there we can use object destructuring to get the language and the concrete value. And then we set language equal to language and children equal to value. And then we just also add a style property, and that's where I then use Atom Dark, which I also import. And this will render code by using this component. And with that added, if we save everything and reload, our single article here. It can take a while for the first time, but then we see our code rendered like this. And I would argue that this is much more readable and much nicer to read than that default formatting we had. Now, of course, feel free to play around with the different themes. Here, this is the theme and the look I will go with, and that therefore now is the finished post content. We now know how we can load the content, how we can present it with React Markdown, and how we can fine-tune it to replace certain elements like images or code snippets. So our blog is taking shape, and it is working. It's showing our posts, featured posts here, and all posts here. And as we saw, we can also visit individual posts and have features like code highlighting. Now let's work on this contact page, because that's totally missing. And here my goal is to show a form which users can fill out to send a message to us. And then I want to accept this message with help of API routes. That's another key feature we learned about. And then I want to store that message in a database. So not Markdown files or anything like this, because that's now user-generated content, but instead a real database. And that's what we're going to work on over the next lectures.